For more on the situation in Ukraine, I'm joined by James Jatras. He's a foreign relations analyst and the deputy director at the American Institute in Ukraine. Jim, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
If, in fact, Russian military convoys crossed into Ukraine, what are the ramifications of that?
It potentially could be quite serious if that's the case. And right now, it seems to me these reports are pretty sketchy. It does seem odd when the insurgents control like 100 kilometers of border with Russia, that an armed incursion would occur just at that moment when this humanitarian aid is supposed to be coming through. And then the Ukrainians immediately after that say they hit it with an airstrike. If that's what happened, yes, it's serious. Let's see what the ramifications are. But I think right now the big issue is this humanitarian convoy.
Okay, so let's talk about this humanitarian convoy. It's been stuck near the border for a few days now. Why is it taking so long to get perhaps envoys from the International Red Cross to inspect what's inside? And if in fact they're holding water and milk and supplies, let the convoys go and help the people that need it.
Well, you would think so. Originally, the authorities in Kiev said they weren't going to let it in at all, or if it did come in, it had to come into territory controlled by the Kiev forces. And the Russians clearly were not going to do that because it would mean turning the assistance over to the Kiev government, and they would distribute it any way they want. So now they're going to come into through insurgent-controlled territory, but they're going to allow Ukrainian officials and ICRC to inspect it and accompany it into the insurgent-controlled areas and distribute it there. We'll see if that stands up either. I mean, these deals seem to be breaking up and reforming by the hour, it seems.
Do you think so much of the problem with this humanitarian convoy is that the trust between Ukraine and Russia has been pretty much destroyed?
Sure, there's zero trust. And let's keep in mind, why is the humanitarian aid needed? There's an offensive by the Kiev forces. A couple thousand people have been killed. They're shelling and bombing cities. People there need this assistance. And I think there's in the backdrop here is that I think Kiev realizes if these trucks come in and this aid is being distributed by the Red Cross, that's going to have a dampening effect on their ability to conduct this offensive against these populated areas.
And we're not talking about 1, 2, 3, or 4 trucks. We're talking about nearly 300 trucks that are stuck at the border. Realistically speaking, once the inspection begins, how long do you think it will take to get these trucks inspected and make some kind of decision, yes or no?
Well, I think they can inspect the trucks individually relatively quickly. It really comes down to whether or not there's a will to let the aid in and get it distributed. I think that could be done pretty quickly, and I think there is an urgent need for it. The other side to it is that we see Kiev now responding, saying, oh, yes, now, well, we're going to distribute humanitarian aid too. Why didn't they think of that a week or two ago?
Let's talk about the city of Donetsk. It came under heavy shelling this week. Rebels are trying to hold off Ukrainian forces. What is the solution here? How long can this conflict go on for without really a political solution?
That's the key question. And frankly, I think the real problem, I'm sorry to say it, is coming from Washington. I think if this were left between the Russians and the Europeans,
that there would be... Why do you think Washington is a problem
Because
here?
they see this as a zero-sum game with Moscow. It really is a kind of a U.S.-Russia proxy confrontation. And unfortunately, the people in Ukraine are paying the price for it. I think it's because we also have a very weak government in Kiev with some radical elements in it that sees a military solution to this as a political answer that they need, rather than looking what's going to keep Ukraine together, what's going to be good for the people who are suffering in this conflict. I think that's really where the crux needs to be. I think we need the Europeans to step up to the plate and say, look, time out. Let's stop this. Let's have a ceasefire. Let's have a genuine negotiation.
And it looks like the two sides from Kiev and Moscow are supposed to hold some kind of dialogue in Berlin this weekend. So we'll see where all that goes. Thank you so much, sir. Jim Jatras, we really appreciate your take on this.